Hey guys, and welcome back to our first series of 2021. The series we're going to be doing is called Shema. And what does that mean? It means being devoted to God. In this series, we are going to be unpacking Deuteronomy 6, verse 5. The first part is all about listening. And what does it mean to listen to God? Let's get ready to worship and let's find out how.
From urban streets to open plains, we are under one name. No one is lost or goes unseen, 'cause we're all loved by our King. This is nothing ordinary. There is power in the name we carry. Every nation, every tongue, welcome to the kingdom. All the rich, all the poor, all the people, all yours. We are daughters, we are sons, more than mortals. We are royals, we are yours. We are yours, yeah, yours. We are yours. Hearts unbound, running free, different stories, one dream. We don't wonder where we belong. We found our home in the Father's love. This is nothing ordinary. There is power in the name we carry. Every nation, every tongue, welcome to the kingdom. All the rich, all the poor, all the people, all yours. speaking. Just a word has the whole earth shaking. Yes, our God cannot be moved. In a world of hate and vengeance, your word speaks of forgiveness. Yes, our God cannot be moved. Yes, our God cannot be moved. Unshakable love, unshakable love. Your kingdom forever stands. Your love, it has no end. Unshakable love. Your love, it has no end. You're the hope of our salvation. One breath and the dead awaken. Yes, our God cannot be moved. Full life is what you offer. It's not found in any other. Yes, our God cannot be moved. No. Unshakable love, unshakable love. Your kingdom forever stands. Your love, it has no end. Unshakable love. Your love, it has no end. Our God is never changing. When all the earth is fading, His love will be our light. And I can see that the day is dawning. And when all the earth is shaking, I'm right where I belong. I can see that the day is dawning. And when all the earth is shaking, I'm right where I belong. Standing in your unshakable love. Your love, it has no end. Unshakable love. Your kingdom forever stands. Your love, it has no end. Unshakable love.
Hey guys, today I'd like to share with you a story. And like any good story, it's important to start in the beginning. And this story is the very beginning. You see, when this whole world was created, I was not here and you were not here. But did you know that God was here? Today, this purple piece of cloth will help us think of God. See, purple is the color of royalty, the color of a king. God created this world. He was and He is king over all of it. He created the mountains and the valleys. He created rivers and trees. He created animals of all kinds, but then God did something different. He created something extra special. He created people. People like you and me. In fact, every single person who ever has or ever will walk upon the face of this earth was created by God. Today, this red piece of cloth will help us think of people. And here's the thing, when God made us, He had an extra special plan for us. He wanted us to be close to Him, to be tight with Him, to have a solid, unbroken relationship with God. But there's a problem. See, the problem is that all of us have done something to ruin all of that. Every single one of us have let words come out of our mouth that we knew we shouldn't say. We've all done things that we knew were wrong to do. Those type of things we are told are called sin. You see, all of us have sinned, and because we have sinned, we've been separated from God. The perfect relationship we were created to have has been broken. It's been ruined. And not only have we been separated from God, but there is now a penalty that we have to pay, a price that we owe, and we are told that the wages of sin, the price that we owe, that price is death. But you might say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't really make sense. If none of us are perfect, if all of us have said and done things we shouldn't say and do, and if the wages of sin, the price we owe for sinning is death, why are we alive? Now that's a fair question. But here's what this does not mean. This does not mean that if you go do something later today or tomorrow that you shouldn't do, or you say something you shouldn't say and you sin, you'll fall over and die. Thankfully for all of us, that is not what that means. So what does it mean? Well, what it does mean is we face a spiritual death. And I know that can sound confusing, so hopefully this picture will help. What that simply means is that our sin has now come in between we as people and God. And as long as there is that sin in our lives, there's nothing we could ever do by ourselves to fix that problem. We would forever be separated from God because of our sin. And if that was the end of the story, it definitely would not be a very good story. But thankfully for us, that's not the end, because there was one person who was different. A person like me and like you. A person who walked upon this earth and was tempted to say things they shouldn't say, to do things they shouldn't do. But this one person never gave in to that temptation. One person was perfect. And that one and only person was Jesus. Now here's the thing, I don't know if Jesus really looked like this. It's just a picture that helps us think of Jesus. But he truly was the only perfect person who ever lived. But even though Jesus was perfect, there were some people who didn't like him. See, Jesus knew what it was like to have people say and do things to you for no reason at all. Jesus was perfect and people still hated him. They hated him so much they began to spit upon him, to beat him. They nailed him to a cross and they killed Jesus. After Jesus died upon that cross, they went a step further. They brought his body down from the cross and they began to do something. They began to wrap it in some burial clothes, which simply were some strips of cloth in which he would be buried. They placed Jesus' dead body inside those strips of cloth. And then they did one last thing. They took the entire thing, Jesus' dead body, wrapped in burial clothes, and they placed it inside a tomb, which was simply a large hole in the ground in which a great big rock or stone had been placed in front to keep it closed. And at that moment, I'm sure some people thought that must be the end of the story. But it wasn't the end. See, on the third day, some people came to that tomb, and you can imagine how surprised they must have been when they noticed that the stone placed in front had been rolled away. As if by a miracle, someone had simply reached down, picked it up, and set it aside. They looked inside that tomb, and when they did, they saw something absolutely amazing. It wasn't a trick, it wasn't an illusion, it was a miracle. You see, what they realized was that the grave clothes were still there, but Jesus' body was no longer there. The amazing truth is that Jesus loved us so much that even though we were not perfect, he was willing to die on a cross for our sin, and he did not stay dead. He rose from that grave. And it's only because of that that our picture can change. You remember that picture that we as people were separated from God because of that sin in our lives. And I told you there's nothing we can do by ourselves to fix that problem. But because of what Jesus has done, there is a way. In fact, Jesus said it like this. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No person comes to God but through me. See, the amazing thing is that even though we are not perfect, Jesus still loved us enough to die on a cross and rise from the grave. He was willing to do that for us, and you know what? We can be willing to choose to live our life for him, to serve Jesus, to do our best, to be holy, to make him number one in all that we do. Today, I hope you have made the choice to always serve Jesus, to live a life that follows after him.
For thousands of years, every morning and evening, Jewish people have prayed these well-known words as a way of expressing their devotion to God. They're called the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And as for you, you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength. Now, the first word of the Shema is hear or listen, which in Hebrew is pronounced Shema. That's where the prayer gets its name. Now, Shema is a really common word in the Hebrew Bible, and it's obvious why. Hearing is a very universal activity. It's usually connected with the ear, as in Proverbs chapter 20, ears that shema and eyes that see, the Lord has made them both. Now that seems basic enough, but if you look at the other ways that Hebrew authors can use the word Shema, they use it to mean more than just let sound waves enter your ear. In Hebrew, Shema can also mean pay attention to or focus on. So when Leah, who wasn't loved by her husband Jacob, she has a son, and she names him Simon, or in Hebrew, Shim'on, because, she says, the Lord has sham'ad, that I am unloved. So Shema means to hear and to pay attention to, and even more. It can also mean responding to what you hear. This is why so many of the cries for help in the book of Psalms begin with a call that God listen. Psalm 27, verse 7. Shema my voice when I call, O Lord. Be merciful, answer me. So asking God to Shema is at the same time asking God to act, to do something. It's similar to when God asks people to listen. Like when the people of Israel come to Mount Sinai, God says, if you Shema me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all the nations you will be my treasured possession. Now, there's a couple interesting things about this verse in Exodus. In Hebrew, the word Shema is repeated twice in this sentence to give it emphasis. If you Shema, Shema, meaning listen closely. But also notice that from God's point of view, listening is basically the same as keeping the covenant. So when God asks the people to Shema, what he means is that they listen and obey. And that's the last fascinating thing about Shema. In ancient Hebrew, there is no separate word for obey, meaning to carry out the wishes of someone who knows better than you or is in authority over you. So in the Bible, if you want to say, I will listen and do what you say, you use the single word, Shema. In Hebrew, listening and doing are two sides of the same coin. This is why later in Israel's history, when the people were breaking their covenant promises to God, the Hebrew prophets would say things like, they have ears, but they're not listening. The Israelites, of course, could hear just fine, but they weren't actually listening, or else they would act differently. And so in the end, listening in the Bible is about giving respect to the one speaking to you and doing what they say. Real listening takes effort and action, and that's the Hebrew word Shema.
Who was Jesus?
Who is Jesus?
That's the question.
That's the question.
Was he a real person?
What did he say?
What did he do?
What made him so special?
What made him different than any other man in history?
The records show
His birth was a miracle.
his mom was a virgin and she was pregnant.
He made the blind see.
The deaf hear.
The mute speak.
The paralyzed walk.
He healed terrible diseases.
He knew what was in men's minds.
He knew what was in men's hearts.
He knows what is in men's hearts.
He knew the story of people's lives without ever having met them.
He spoke with authority.
He amazed teachers.
He amazed everyone. Nature obeyed him.
He turned water into wine.
He walked on water.
He walked on top of the water.
He could change the weather.
He fed 5,000 people from one lunchbox.
He brought people who were dead back to life.
He loved sinners.
He loved everyone.
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 He forgave sins.
He never made a mistake.
He never once sinned.
But we judged him.
We whipped and beat him.
We spit on him.
We killed him.
He loved us anyway.
He loves us anyway.
He died for us.
He died so that we wouldn't have to.
He paid for our sins with his life.
Did I mention he loves us?
He came back to life.
He was dead.
Then he was alive.
A lot of people saw him.
He is coming back.
Who is Jesus?
That's a big question.
That's the big question.
What does it even matter?
What does it matter to you?
Who is Jesus?
My answer doesn't matter to you.
Only your answer matters to you.
Who do you say that he is?
Who do you say that he is?
Wasn't that awesome? It's so nice to hear and to learn how to listen to God. I can't wait to see you guys next week. Until then, follow us on Instagram and check the resources below. Bye, guys.